I stand before you to speak in opposition of renewal of the Business Improvement District tax. Had several meetings. I was at the one that happened last Monday where a lot of questions were raised, but there's three simple reasons that my partner and I don't choose to support this and would ask you not to support it. The first reason is because the current BID was hired Caddy, and Caddy did not live up to the expectations. It didn't do what we were told it was going to do. The number one thing that's highlighted in the July 2007 minutes, where the first BID was passed, it says that generally the services are security, as well as cleanliness and sometimes promotion and advertising. But I think, as it was stated at the committee meetings, there was no real security aspect to it. Some of the Caddy folks have received some training, but it wasn't very specific as to what type of training it was or how it's going to go. So that's one. Two was how the board of directors was elected. In the notes from July 2007, it said that the board of directors would be elected from the property owners that pay the tax. Not the property owners that supported the tax, but 100% of the property owners that were in the district. And I can speak for the owners of the Doris building and tell you that they were never contacted to vote on this or to nominate anyone or to elect anyone. So this board of directors that sits now that controls, I guess over $1 million worth of tax money and how it's spent downtown, really is not answerable to anyone. We've looked for it. We can't find out who's on the board. We can't find out how to contact them and have the issues addressed. That's one. Two, disproportionate tax rate. We found out later on that the Marriott and the Riverfront LLC was able to negotiate a lower tax rate than the rest of the property owners in the district. There's two zones. That was not something that I remember hearing about at the beginning of it, and certainly wasn't in any of the 2007 July notes where it was passed. So being that every property owner that is willing to provide the services that Caddy was providing wasn't able to negotiate their own tax rate, we see that as a problem with the way it works, and we don't agree with it. And the third is for pure economics. As a property manager, I'm newly appointed to that position, and I'm finding it very difficult to find tenants for the buildings downtown that we own. One of the problems is that, you got to give someone time with a new business to get in and get their head above water, incubator. So we're willing to negotiate, graduated lease rates and things like that. But this is a third level tax. It's a third tax put on us downtown. So we have two choices. We can either pass this along to our client, or we can take it out of our very small profit on these buildings, which were very expensive to refurbish. So those are the three reasons that we oppose it, and we would ask today that it doesn't matter how many people would sign the petition. We'd like to see a copy of the petition. We can't get a copy of that to see who signed it. But we would ask you to deny it, and deny it based on the actions of what's happened in the past 5 years. Not what's promised, because we have no control over what was promised, but we know what was promised last time and what was delivered. So we would ask you to deny this regardless of the number of petition signers that are up, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.
Going to Delegation J. And just for clarity, I noticed that H was Ms. Elizabeth Nash from Hill Creek Homeowners Association. I believe that had she left or
withdrawn her request to speak.
Okay. On to J, please.
Item J, Ms. Robin Schweitzer regarding the bid Caddy.
Well, Mr. Owens pretty much said what I have prepared to say, but I will add to it. 5 years ago, the proponents of this bid were so sure it would spread like mayonnaise that they were convinced that it would go to the 5, 6, and half of the 700 blocks that were eliminated and are still eliminated as of today. The only thing that I can ask is that, from what I've been told, only 4 votes have pushed their petition. I ask that you consider the other 49% of us before you recommend passing this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Lockett.
Ms. White, this is either for you or Brad, whomever would like to respond to it. But I have a piece of code of Georgia annotated 36-43-5, 2012, and it deals with the Business Improvement District. And it says that at least 51% of the municipal taxpayers, as shown by the most recent list of taxpayers billed by the municipality of the district, proposed for creation or extension. And I'm assuming, since this is already in existence, that this is an extension. And it goes on to say in subparagraph 3 that the petition shall be presented to the governing authority of the municipality, which shall refer it to the appropriate municipal departments for review of its sufficiency, reasonableness of assessments, and financial feasibility of the plan. These departments shall submit to the governing authority reports which shall approve of, disapprove of, or give qualified approval with modifications to the district plan, with reasons therefore. The governing authority shall hold a public hearing on the issues of whether such district should be created, provided that notice of the hearing shall be placed in a newspaper of general circulation in the community at least 10 days prior to the date of the hearing. And it says the governing authority may approve with modifications, or disapprove the plan. Are you aware of that? Have you seen such a plan? Do you know if these things have been done?
No, sir.
Mr. Owens, are you aware of whether or not these things have been done?
And actually, I'm supposed to call them to defend.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Owens.
will you please call Ms. White and let me answer my question? I apologize.
I'm begging your pardon, Mr. Mayor. No, sir, not that I'm aware of. We've never seen it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. White.
Commissioner Bowles.
Yeah, I would just like to thank my retired esteemed colleague down there for his diligent research, and more importantly, Bill, I think not only have the taxpayers of the district not seen this information, but we're supposed to vote on it. What have you seen? I haven't seen anything.
If I may answer, nothing.
Okay. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. And Madam Clerk, now let's go to the agenda item in question.
Yes, sir. Item 36 is a motion for the continuation of the Downtown Augusta Business Improvement District by the Director of the Downtown Development, Augusta.
Mr. Chairman, move to disapprove.
Okay, we have a motion that's been properly seconded. Mr. Russell.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission, I was asked to hold a public hearing in relation to this and did so today after proper notification at 3 o'clock. There were 10 speakers at that particular hearing, and 7 of which spoke in favor of the bid, 3 of which spoke against it. Each was given 5 minutes to do that, and that was at the request of Margaret to do that, and I did.
Okay, Mr. Lloyd.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Keep it to 5 minutes and give your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Sanford Lloyd. My home address is 711 Woodgate Court. That's in Augusta, Georgia. I want to thank you for the opportunity to make a presentation on behalf of Clean Augusta Downtown Initiative, better known as CADI. This is a program that was put in place to enhance services that are already provided by Augusta-Richmond County. And this program was voted on initially and approved in 2007, and the program ran for 2008, 2009, 2010, 11, and 12. This program was funded by a tax that was approved by the majority of the property owners, in addition to any tax that is currently assessed to them. During that period of time, the program itself did all that it could to do the things that were in the initial outline. And just like Mr. Owens has said, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And the same thing is true of anything that you do. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You take what you have to work with, and you adjust as you go along. To get this program renewed required, again, to go back to the property owners, get them to sign petitions, and we would not be standing before you today if we did not get 51% of the property owners to sign those petitions requesting the renewal of the current program. We did get more than 51% of the property owners to sign a petition saying they support the renewal of the program, which is why we stand before you asking you to honor that request and approve the renewal of the Clean Augusta Downtown Initiative Business Improvement District Plan that will begin in 2013 and run for an additional 5 years. The supporters of this plan wholeheartedly agree that the benefits that will come to Augusta Richmond County, not just for downtown, but the whole county included, will be a tremendous benefit. There have been a lot of questions about the plan. There have been questions about its operation. The plan itself sent out surveys to request people's comments in ways that we think will help improve the program. We are committed to implementing any and all things that will make this program better, because we know how much benefit Augusta Richmond County will receive from this program's continuation. We have nothing to hide from anybody, have never had anything to hide from anybody. The program itself is run by the property owners of downtown. That is the board of directors. They make the decisions. They are responsible for the actions of the program. If there are any questions that myself and Paul King here can answer, we'd be more than happy to do that. Both of us are petition signers, and both of us strongly support the continuation of this business improvement district. Thank you.
Mr. Lloyd, what was the actual percentage that was the final percentage?
52.
52%. And I would just say, it seems to me, if we live in a democracy, and if 52% of the property owners, and that was the property owners, not the value property owners, but the total property owners.
Right, the number of total property owners, that is correct.
It seems to me that we should go with the will of the people on this one. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to just say for the record, I do not have an issue per se with the theory of the caddy program, but I think it's clearly some things in there that need to be addressed, and I think a lot of them haven't been addressed here. And I know one of us would have spoke last week about, we asked a question about the bylaws and so forth. We didn't have any answer, or she didn't have an answer at that time as it relates to, I think, the new bylaws that she spoke about. And from my perspective, I think the downtown merchants, not the building owners, but the merchants need to be more involved in the procedures and have a voice, if you will, to talk about those things that they want to see happen. And secondly, I think, as far as understanding the first 5 years being a trial error, you know what you can and can't do. I think you need to put that on the table in a plan to move forward and say, okay, we can accomplish this. However, the security aspect of it that you initially talked about, you cannot pretty much control or implement. And I think you need to go back to the drawing board and look at that. And from my perspective, that's what I would need to support this, a clear plan and path forward with the revised plan of bylaws that would include those merchants so they can all be inclusive. Because don't get me wrong, the building owners are the owners of the property, but those business owners, those are the people who bring the customers into downtown, and they need to be inclusive in the process. So I think that's what I need to be comfortable moving forward. Thank you.
You want to respond to that, Mr. Lloyd?
The response I have, of course, is naturally that this plan, this program, is open to suggestions and coming from anybody. I do have to, though, make it perfectly clear that the property owners are the people who actually pay the tax, and so it's them that we have to, and by law, in terms of approval of the program, by law, that's who has to be, the petitions have to be signed by. But in terms of all of the business owners, and I think there are downtown merchant associations, in terms of hearing what their complaints are, or their suggestions are in terms of how the program can be improved to get greater benefit, we're completely open to that.
I just want to add, commercial property owners, managers like myself, We want our tenants to be very happy. It's on the top of our list. We wouldn't do something that we thought would make them unhappy. My tenants have called me and saying, please keep this program going. It's made downtown much cleaner.
And just for the, Commissioner Bowles, I'll recognize you, then Commissioner Aiken, but just for the point of clarity, I think, and transparency, if this is not approved this year, what then happens? I think commissioners need to know that. We need to make everybody aware of that.
So if the program is not extended, December 31, of course, everything comes to an end and is terminated. Then the process will be determined whether or not there's a desire to go through the process again in terms of trying to get it approved at a later date or some later start time.
Okay, Commissioner Bowles and Commissioner Aiken.
I've just got two questions for you, Sanford and Paul, I guess, if you don't want to help me out. The selection of the board members, how was that done?
Well, the original plan, this was 5 years ago, so I'll do the best I can to recall this. I was on the steering committee. I was not on the original board, but it was modified. The bylaws were, well, they weren't changed going in, but the bylaws were set up to be attractive to get the 51% that was needed at that time. But I think that has led to flaws in the organization, and those are flaws that we recognize. And there are three things that we want to change and will change going forward with the program. One is the way the board members are nominated and selected. Currently, there's slots for like a property manager, a slot for a retail owner, and stuff like that. And it's just people feel like they're excluded, and we think that's wrong. And we want the nominations to be wide open to all property owners, all 214 property owners and 221, pardon me, who are in the district. And that's what we're going to do going forward on that item.
Okay, so y'all will admit that the previous selection process was basically...
It was flawed. It wasn't, I'm not going to say it wasn't. There's no way around it. It was flawed, but it was a lesson we've learned. The three things we've learned going forward are the selection of the board was flawed. It needs to be wide open. We need to make sure everyone feels included. There's been communication problems from the board tied to the flawed origination process, where the board has not, announced their meetings. I didn't know when they were, and I'm a significant property owner down there.
Question two is, are there any tax rate variances for certain property owners?
There are. There are two zones.
If you don't have my support, then that's completely unfair to every other business.
Would you give us an opportunity to at least say why there are? I can understand your support piece.
I can guess why. Because you want to treat certain property owners different than others.
No, that's not the reason why.
Okay, let's give Mr. Lloyd a chance to respond.
The reason why there are the different zones is because of the actual services required in a particular zone. That particular zone required less services and got less services than the rest of the zones. That is why. In fact, the property owner in that zone, that's not the only piece of property that property owner owns. The rest of them are at the regular rate. But that's the reason why. It wasn't because we were trying to give somebody else.
Okay. That property owner didn't even support the bid, so
I can accept
they didn't get any favors.
But there are 49% of the property owners that are struggling to get by, and they can go out and clean their own sidewalk. So, I don't necessarily like that argument. Okay. Mr. Russell, who validated this petition on behalf of the city?
The only thing we've been asked to do, sir, is do the public hearing. We've not been asked to validate it.
Okay.
The clerk has that in her possession. It was delivered today, but we have not looked at it in any form to validate it.
I don't feel comfortable voting on something that is presented to us without a doubt with people that wanted this thing to pass. And I'm not saying anything happened. But we need to compare the tax rolls to this petition and verify that there actually is 52%.
The roll itself came from the tax assessor's office. That's where we got the information from.
But who's validated that for me?
I don't know.
Because when I have phone calls coming out from government agencies encouraging business owners to support this, I have a problem with that to begin with, because they're working for the government and they're trying to strongly encourage people to approve something that is going to increase their taxes, which I think is kind of haphazard. So,
Hey, Commissioner Aiken.
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the 49%, I think as we unify downtown, it's time for us to come. I want to make a substitute motion, but I don't think some of the questions have been answered on behalf of the 49%. As we look at the tax rate, I think that's a real big issue that we need to really get strong clarity on how do we justify that in the zoning. I think the communication that we haven't had with the other 49% that may be opposed to it, I think that's we got to raise the bar on what we're doing with the caddy program. And I feel like a lot of people may have felt left out of this process and how we do that. And I think they have not living up to the expectations. How do we clear that up? I think 2013 is a very important time in this city. With a lot of things coming down the pike, and I think it's on Caddy Board to help us get to that point where we can support you in a way to answer these questions on behalf of those that are here.
Commissioner Aiken, I'm sure that we would accept any terms or conditions, the duration of the program, specific things you want us to do, like with respect to the creation, the establishment of the board. But as of December 31st, we're going to lay off 7 people. And 7 people who are working hard downtown to keep it clean. We're getting ready to have the Tea Center open next year. We want to keep downtown clean. I'm involved with Historic Augusta. We have 12 people working with Historic Augusta, 12 downtown property owners getting ready to do large tax credit projects, primarily on Broad Street in 2013. They're investing in downtown because they like it, they like the program. 52% supported it, but we're open to modifications. We just want to keep it going through the end of the year.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a substitute motion that we support it, with the stipulations that we look at the tax rate, board process, and how we do the communication on behalf of the merchants downtown to help clarify and build that team that we need to do on behalf of the merchants downtown.
Okay, that's a substitute motion to approve with those stipulations. Okay, do we have a second on that? Okay. We have a second.
No, it wasn't a second.
Second. Okay.
One other thing I think needs to be added is that should be only one district, one tax district. Shouldn't be no thought of pretty.
Okay, are you including that in your motion? Okay. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been trying to get information for quite some time, and I think finally I've heard you say that there was a flawed system in place, which I didn't hear when I was asking questions last week, so I appreciate that. I don't think there's an individual up on this dais, and I don't think there's anybody in this room that does not want downtown to succeed. However, if we talk about perception for a second, there is some negative perceptions as it relates to the caddy program, and perceptions become people's realities. One thing that I want to clear up as far as this commissioner is concerned, from the phone calls that I've taken and the emails and so forth, this is not a referendum against the employees of the caddy program. It's not that at all. That's for sure. What it is, though, it appears to be a referendum against the administration of the program and or the administrators of the program. What I heard you say in reference to the disparity between property zones and the tax rates, the question, I asked that question last week, and I also asked the question, was that something that was offered to all property owners? And the answer was no. And that did not sit well with me from that standpoint, because I felt as though everyone should have been given an opportunity to say whether or not I would be willing to, do the extra cleanup or whatever, and I'd be taxed for that at a lower rate. You made note also of the fact that one of the biggest property owners, certainly the wealthiest, has chose not to be a participant or did not want to participate, even though he's getting a lesser rate on one of his major properties. That there's a lot of questions, and there's more questions in my mind than there are answers. And for me, there's no way today that I could support this with basically the exact same language that was brought forth 5 years ago. There's no one in this room that can tell me that a program, yes sir, Mr.
John, you want to be right now?
Thank you. There's no one in this room that can tell me that there would not be any improvements that could take place in the administration of this program, and maybe that's not even what you're saying, but the point is that with the language currently the way that it is, I'm not prepared to move forward in support of that currently. One of the issues that I do have, and I heard you say that the property owner certainly is the one that pays the tax, and I can respect that, but I also want to respect the business owner who's operating out of that business. Because even though the property owner first of all, they don't have to pay the tax, but even though they've chosen to pay the tax, it's the business owner that's operating out of there, and their voice should be heard in some capacity. This is a democracy. It is the United States of America, and they ought to have an opportunity to weigh in on some of the things that's going on, because they are, in fact, just that, business owners. But the main point that I wanted to make is that this is not a referendum against the caddy employees in any way, shape, or form. It's just unfortunate that you're going to get caught in the middle, and the way that this is written, it's either all or nothing. And so, but I do want to say this is not a referendum against the employees as far as I'm concerned.
But I do want to tag on to something that you said, Commissioner Mason. When you say it's a democracy, 52% of the property owners have approved this and signed on, and I think we're in a slippery slope when the vote's been taken, that's been counted. You know, if we had approved the SPLOST and then went back and said, well, there's only 51%, we're not going to start collecting monies. But my concern is, and I'm just going to tell you, it's going to be voted up or down, but we can't improve a program that's not in place. And when those property owners downtown and businesses start calling when trash is piling up and the sidewalk's dirty, and we don't have the city, resources to supplement it, that's going to happen. So just mark my words.
And I can appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, but if I can respond, because you made reference to me on my statement, just very briefly want to say this. I agree with everything that you're saying 100%. However, what could have happened, and nothing stops this from happening, is those things that we know that are an issue and have been an issue could have been addressed and brought forward today with the plan moving forward. So I understand what you're saying, but in hindsight, if we be proactive versus reactive, and it's already out there that there's perceived and real issues, instead of ignoring them and hoping that we'll fix them sometime down the road, we have to start being more proactive, listening to the citizens, listening to the business owners, and say, hey, let's address these issues because we care enough about you and we care enough about this city. Let's address them, and here's the new way that we'd like to move forward. Who's all in agreement? And I think we would have had some better results.
Commissioner Haney, I know you've got to go.
But one of the things that I'm concerned about in this administration is not a referendum on against employees, and it's not. But at the end of the day, I do believe that it would be wisdom to simply allow these folks to go forward on a 70 or 60-day basis, and all those things that needs to be corrected to be brought back to this body. And if it's not done, then you can discontinue. But to tell folk day before Christmas that they ain't having a job, so it's good. So yeah, that ain't right. At the end of the day, it's not right.
Okay, hang on. Would you like? Can we legally do that, Mr. McKenzie, or do you know we're getting into a gray area here because we're dealing with state law?
The provisions that authorize the bid do allow for the bid to be modified or even rescinded even after it's approved. So there could be a provisional approval, and you could address the issues that have been raised here, and you can amend the plan at any point in time. So it could be approved on a provisional basis, subject to revision by this body.
Okay, so we can approve it, say, given 90-day opportunity. They come back and provide the information for us, show that they've made the changes, and it can then be either not adjusted or rescinded.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Russell?
That takes care of the technical aspect of either moving forward or not. What you're faced with is whether or not on December 31st, if the program ends, if you've done that. If you come back 3 months from now and say you're not going to collect the taxes, if you assume that you're moving forward, you've got 3 months of operations that's not funded. So you've got to be real careful about that. I mean, you need to be careful about that.
Commissioner Brigham?
You calling me while I
I
had an opportunity to speak on this issue. I appreciate that.
No, Commissioner Brigham, and I apologize, Commissioner Lockett. It's kind of been going on, bouncing all around the room like a ping pong ball.
Mr. Mayor, if this was an election, which it is sort of an election, I didn't know that 49% automatically came a majority because they were the loudest. I don't agree with everything that's been done in the county program. But we are here to represent the majority of citizens. Now, we can modify ordinances, we can change methods, but we're here to represent the majority. If we didn't get a majority, we wouldn't be here. Now, I don't know that the names have been verified. I think they need to be verified. But I think we don't have much of a decision. We can either approve it subject to verification or not, but otherwise we're going to take this whole system and just say, all you got to do is come down, be loud, protest, wear a shirt, stand up, holler, and we're going to do whatever the person hollers the loudest. But we don't see the majority of the 221, 23 people that voted. They're not here. How do we know? If they were here, we could have them stand up and say, did you sign it or not? Then we don't even know if they actually are that person. You know, actually in Augusta you can vote and live at lots of vacant houses. No houses on it. So, you know, the whole system. But we have to look at the results. We have, whether I like it or not, we have to represent the majority. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and just for clarification, we could approve it based on Commissioner Aiken's substitute motion, but going into, if we wanted to rescind it at any given point next year, we have the option to do that. Correct, Mr. McKenzie?
That's correct.
Okay, Commissioner Lockwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Law and Mr. King, Mr. King, I think you said you have some properties downtown. Are you passing this tax on to your tenants?
Not directly, no.
How about indirectly?
Every penny I live off of comes from my tenants.
You know, y'all have had 5 years to treat this program.
Sir, I was not running the caddy program.
The caddy program and its leadership have had 5 years. And now you got the midnight hour wanting to talk about all the changes that you contemplate making. Y'all are costing the state $1,000 a day. $1,000 a day. You know, I kind of look out for the 48% because I know just a couple of days ago, y'all didn't have the 52%. I don't know what you did to get it. In fact, I don't want to know what you did to get it. But I'm supporting the 48%. And lastly, I've heard the word democracy used several times this evening. Democracy, one person, one vote. Donald Trump doesn't get more votes than Bill Lockett. But with your program, it hasn't been that way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Bowles, I think I've recognized
Not
you
just
twice.
once. I'm just glad to see that Bill, a lifelong Democrat, now supporting Mitt Romney.
Okay, I think we've discussed this. Wait, Commissioner Guilfoyle, you. Okay, we have a substitute motion that's been properly seconded.
I'd just like to add, I think you said 90 days, it shouldn't have been 90, I think it should have been 60 days.
Well, we don't have to add in because we have the opportunity at any point next year to see how it's going. So, we can cancel it whenever we want. Correct, Mr. McKenzie?
Greg, if you modify it anytime, I would suggest though that it is subject to verification of the proper approvals from the property owner, so that we can make that statutory requirement of that.
Commissioner Aiken would like to include that in his motion.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that we were talking about extending it till we get that information that was requested in the modification, and of course making sure that we verify the votes, of course, of those who voted. But from my perspective, I think we need to extend it. I wouldn't say approve, maybe extend it, and then based on, once they come back with the proper information, then we can proceed forward. But that's why I was looking into
Mr. McKenzie.
Technically, the first 5-year period bid will expire on December 31st, so it will be the approval of a new bid that starts a new 5-year period. And so if you want to put conditions on the approval of the new bid, you're technically not extending the existing bid because it expires. You're going with a new bid. This motion will be subject to verification that the appropriate signatures as required by the statute have been acquired. And if you want to put a condition on it to make it provisional within the first 60 or 90 days, you can do that. As the mayor says, the statutory regime allows it to be modified or rescinded at any point in time. You don't have to put a 60 or 90 day period, because you can rescind it within 30 days or the next time that you bring these issues up for discussion, which apparently need to be addressed. So that I think that's the issue that gets addressed with that.
what I'm saying is we need to give them a timeline, though, correct? We need to have this information back to the commission. That's why I put it.
And I think how we get there is to approve it, but also include in the motion for the caddy team or leadership, whoever, to provide us a full report and update on the issues to be addressed within do we want to say 60 or 90? 60, within a 60-day period. Can you include that in your motion, Commissioner? Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have all that?
Okay.
It's the substitute.
Substitute motion was to approve the program with the stipulation that the tax rate zones be looked at, the process of the election of the board, the level of the communication, that the verification of the property owners who voted be checked. And I believe Mr. Hatton here for one I missed. I believe you had one amendment that I missed. For a 60-day period.
That'd be only be one zone.
Yeah, that's in there.
2 zones now. You really don't need but one.
That's in there. And then that the leadership of the caddy program report back to this commission, and I'm going to say within 60 days, so that they can, if you get it faster, then that's the faster the better.
Mr. Mayor, how are we paying for this?
What's that?
How are we paying for this? What is this? What are these funds? Where are these funds coming from? No, I mean, because that one's over. So I need to know how are we paying for it moving forward. I need somebody to tell me.
Okay. Mr. McKenzie, you want to?
Sure. This would be the implementation of a new business improvement district, which would authorize tax collection similar to the previous bid. So it will be paid for by additional tax funds for this program.
Okay. Mr. Russell, you're shaking your head?
That's assuming that it goes forward. My concern is if we, after 60 days, have decided that it doesn't work at that point, or we can't come to an agreement on what we do, we're 60 days into a program that has not been funded. I talked to them, and they say they have 30 days of reserves that they can cover, and I would be more comfortable if we did this within 30 days so that we're not creating an obligation to the city or anybody above and beyond the payment that would be available. So,
okay, could we amend that to say within the first 30 days of the new year?
You gotta get it done. Gotta get it done. It's not optional.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, one thing, Florrie, do we also include the validation of the signatures?
If she,
Yes.
Okay, because I noticed that.
it's a,
Okay. Okay, we have a substitute motion that's been properly seconded and discussed a lot. Commissioners will now vote by the substitute sign of voting.
That motion fails with Mr. Aiken, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Bowles, Mr. Brigham, and Mr. Hackney all voting yes. Voting no, Mr. Mason, Mr. Lockett, Mr. Jackson, and Mr. Guilfoyle, and Mr. Smith out.